All right, back in the basement again today to talk about this, the Rogue Ohio Power Bar Aggro 3X, the most aggressive knurling that Rogue offers, and a bar that might be too sharp for some of you, or at least that's what people would lead you to believe. Now, I'm not going to get too into the specs this video because on paper and in reality, this is just a Rogue Ohio Power Bar 45-pound version in stainless steel, all the same specs. You do get a couple of things that are to be considered extra because it's the Aggro 3X. So, namely the knurling, obviously. There's a 2X as well, which is a step between the two, but I went full Aggro in this case. And some Cerakote finishes on the smooth parts of the shaft. You have Rogue on one side, and you should have an Aggro face right here with either 2 front teeth or 3 front teeth to show you which version you got. You'll notice mine's actually been painted over, and that's because this is a grab bag version. So I do not have that face logo painted here, which truthfully, I'm okay with. I'm not a big fan of that design anyways. And then instead of stainless steel sleeves on this, I have chrome sleeves. But the bright side is I got this bar much cheaper than the list price and still got that full-on Aggro 3X knurl. Now, speaking of list price, this bar is relatively expensive. It's $530 before shipping and tax. To me in Rhode Island, after shipping and tax would be around $600, which is one of the reasons I waited to get this grab bag version because I saved a ton of money on it. Now, $530 is expensive. Don't get me wrong. The 2X, a little bit cheaper at $510, still expensive. But if within context, if you're looking at the normal Rogue Ohio Power Bar 45-pound version in stainless steel, which by the way, up until today, and actually even after today, is still my choice as my daily driver. If I had to pick just one barbell to own, that would be it. List price on that for the fully stainless steel version, $485. So for $30 more, you can get a 2X. For $50 more, you get a 3X. So I think within that context, the pricing isn't outrageous considering that you get some nicer finishes on the knurl, or more aggressive at least I should say, and some of the Cerakoting on the smooth parts to differentiate your bar from a standard 45-pound version. Now that being said, is this bar too sharp? Well, can't be too sharp if I'm resting my forearms on it right now and my hands, but I will say I was a little bit pessimistic heading into this because I watched my buddy Coop, I watched his review, and all I have in my head is him saying it's sharp.
Wow, this is sharp.
But Coop, love you buddy, but you have soft hands and I don't think you really power lift necessarily where you're doing heavy enough deadlifts or squats with this bar to give a full-on opinion of it, at least for the audience that I tend to cater towards. Again, I love Coop, big shout out if you watch this video. Basements are better, but I wanted to get my hands on it too because, like you guys, I'm always skeptical of what other people say, and obviously my opinion is often the best opinion, at least according to me, which is the point of opinions, isn't it? So I wanted to get this bar out, but again, when I untubed it and got my hands on it, I was going to think to myself, yeah, it's going to be aggressive, but it's not going to be something that I'm like, wow, that's sharp.
Wow, this is sharp.
But I was pleasantly surprised. This thing is by far the sharpest 29mm power bar I've used and or owned, which is great. Now I really put it in that regard, 29mm bar that I've used and or owned, because I've used some odd attachments here and there in some gyms I've been to over the years, where like a random pull-up bar is like a cheese grater type pull-up bar for some reason, or there's some 28.5mm bars out there that have a very similar knurl pattern to this and similar height peaks, but it's a smaller diameter, or the actual knurl pattern's a little bit more dense, or it's coated with something that's not stainless steel, which is going to give you the best feel outside of bare steel. So there's always caveats to be had, but I can say that I'm confident recommending this bar if you're looking for the most aggressive barbell that you can buy in the open market. And it's really nice in the fact that, again, it's stainless steel sleeves, shaft with some Cerakoting on it as well, and made in the USA. So definitely good in that regard. Now, again, going into this, I was a little bit hesitant to use this in training because, again, it felt like the sharpest bar I've ever used, and I thought this is going to tear me up. In fact, Rogue puts up some warning on its website about how sharp this bar is, and it's not for the faint of heart, and you can't return it, and all this stuff. Great marketing, by the way, but oftentimes marketing doesn't really tell you the whole story. But again, after feeling this bar, I was a little bit worried for my hands and for my back. So the first thing I did when I got this was I benched with it because I don't bench a lot of weight. And it's not going to tear up my hands too bad because I'm not going overly heavy with it. And that was the case. So very sharp, dug in great, left the marks on my hands, all that stuff that you can be used to from sharp bars, but nothing where I would say I cannot bench with this bar. So it passed the first test. The next test was on the deadlifts, and in that case, I was worried not only about my hands opening up and ripping, but also potentially tearing up my shins. But to be honest, I've never had a problem with barbells before and ripping calluses or bleeding or scraping my shins up, unless I pull sumo, which is another reason why you shouldn't pull sumo. You'll mess up your shins more than you will conventional. Worried going into it, but went heavy with it and didn't have any problems. Now, again, I've talked about before in other videos, I tend not to use chalk just because I don't find that I need it. Definitely don't need it with this bar because it digs in really, really well. And even though I wasn't doing super high rep sets, I didn't have any issues with my hands. I think I was doing sets of 4 or 5, but you'll see in the video that I'm playing as B-roll in terms of what I did with it. And although it was uncomfortable, it wasn't undoable. It was doable. I need to think of some better adjectives. I need to play Mad Libs in the basement. But was okay, right? Would I use it every day if I had the choice? No, probably not. Finally, I used it for squats, and to be honest, squats was what I was most worried about because my rear delts tend to not build up as much tolerance as my hands have over the years because hands are something that are always on the bar, and for me, my rear delts are only on the days that I squat, which actually, to be honest, again, seems to be like almost every time I train these days, but this is where I thought I would get tore up and my shoulders might bleed a little bit. But again, pleasantly surprised in the fact that it really gripped well to my shirt and to my back. And although it was definitely sharp and aggressive and dug in, it wasn't to the point where I was like, I can't use this bar to squat. And that's with me going fairly heavy with a set of 525 pounds and then a bunch of back offs after that. So in conclusion, is this bar sharp? Yes. Is it too sharp to train with? No. Would I recommend it to most people to use as a daily driver? No, I would not. Because again, even though I didn't have problems benching, squatting, or deadlifting with it, it is aggressive to the point where it's uncomfortable for long periods of use. So I think if I use this enough over time, especially for a lot of rep work, I would probably start to feel that my hands and skin were hurting. My back would probably be hurting a little bit more. On the odd occasion that I do want to use it, I can work it in and not have a problem. But with all the bars I have, I don't find myself gravitating towards using it that much. In fact, in the couple of months that I've owned this bar, I think I've probably actually gone to use it maybe like 5 or 6 times. I tend to use bars that are still on the aggressive side, but not to the point where, again, they're uncomfortable to use for long periods of time. So this would be a great bar if you're looking for a PR bar, a 1-rep max tester bar, if you're in a competition type or you just want something as aggressive as possible, or maybe you're just sadistic and a masochist and you just want to hurt yourself, this would be the bar for you. But otherwise, it's hard to recommend unless you're specifically, again, looking for just the sharpest and most painful bar you can use, in which case I think this is the best available on the market right now. Number 1, given the knurl, and number 2, just given the stainless steel finish and the build quality behind it, full lifetime warranty, made in USA, etc., etc. All the nice things I've said about the Ohio Power Bar in the past apply to this bar. This is just a nastier and meaner version of it. Now, that being said, I think what I'm going to have to do is drop another $500 on the 2X because from what I hear from a lot of people who have owned both, as well as the original Ohio Power Bar, that's kind of like the perfect storm of fit, finish, quality, and knurling. Some people think the Ohio Power Bar is a bit too passive. Some people think it's too aggressive, but most people who've owned all 3 bars say that the 2X is a nice medium between, which it is literally right between the two. So I might have to get my hands on that to give you my feedback on that as well. But let me know what you think. Have you used any of the aggro bars out there? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Or is the regular Ohio Power Bar enough for you? Talk to me, people. Let me know in the comment section down below. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.